Welcome back from the break, everyone, to Pivotal Change. And I have our next very exciting speaker, another dear friend of mine, Lera Kooper. She is the owner of Accountability Services, which is an accounting and advisory firm, and she's also the Chief Development Officer. Now, a little secret about her is she is exploding and disrupting in this industry. She is on her own podcast. She does a lot of speaking across the country and helping other people grow as well. So without further ado, Lera, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for the introduction, Ryan. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm happy that you're here as well because we have some pretty fun topics for today. One of the things that I know that you are particularly good at is getting people to change how they operate in or on their businesses and really transform themselves as the owners and leaders of their company into basically a whole new mold. So my first question kicking things off for you is, following that line, how can a business owner effectively transition from working on their business or from working in their business to working on their business?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think every business owner should consider. And I think the first thing that they have to come to terms with to understand and believe is that everyone exits for better or worse. It's just a matter of whose terms they do it on. So you can exit because you are burnt out and shut the doors and can't take another year of your business. You could exit because of something like COVID, something that's out of your control. Or you could exit because you're out of commission yourself. And so once we come to terms with that for better or worse, we're going to be closing or leaving our business at some point, then you can start taking the first steps towards effectively planning how you're going to do that, setting yourself up for success, and transitioning into it.
Oh, goodness. I like that awareness. I don't think a lot of us out there running our businesses or trying to start a new business, maybe we've even been in it for 20 or 30 years, are really thinking about that end goal, that ultimate succession plan. And so you kind of touching on a couple of things you said, you trying to get people to expect the unexpected, right? There could be things like COVID or health concerns or just changes in life. And you always want to accommodate for as many as you can, but more than anything, you really need to be just planning long term about how and when you're going to exit on your terms as much as possible. You also mentioned forming a plan. You said starting to form a plan. Tell me a little bit more about that. Like what are some of the first steps somebody should take in forming a plan to really start thinking about their exit?
Excellent question, because I think we can talk about theory all day long. And by this point, if people are watching your show, if they're listening to my podcast, they already appreciate the need for working on your business. Now we have to dig into the nuts and bolts of what does that mean? What's the first step? What does it look like? Because it can be overwhelming if it's not something you're accustomed to doing. And so, number one, I would say prioritize figuring out your time management. If you're in the business currently, you're in the weeds, it's very hard to pull yourself out of operations, even if not as far as scheduling goes, in terms of your mindset. And so, whenever you have the best energy in the day, maybe that's first thing before you check your emails, maybe it's last thing in the evening, really set down some, specific time blocks and think about what's my goal? What's my vision for the business? What am I trying to accomplish? Because nobody went into business just to file an extra tax return. They likely went into business because they wanted to retire early, have more time with their family. Maybe they have some very ambitious goals, and the only way you're going to get there is with a plan. But a plan needs a goal. And so start there, figure out what you're really trying to accomplish. What does success look like for you in 3, 5, 10 plus years? Because if you have that in place, setting the midterm, the short-term goals and the key performance indicators required to achieve it, those ones can adjust with the industry or your circumstances or challenges and opportunities you face, as long as you have that vision clear in mind. And so once that's established, continue that habit of setting time aside to look at the data, look at it in comparison to the goal, the KPIs, the key performance indicators that you set in place, because by having those measurable things, you're able to track progress. You have a scorecard. You know where the low-hanging fruit is. What you need to attack in business to get you closer to your goal. And having those things clearly defined also helps you really prioritize how you spend your resources, both your time and your dollars. Because as entrepreneurs, we love to do everything, but we're only going to accomplish something big if we focus in. And so that's where I would start is figuring out where that focus is and then breaking it down into clear, measurable goals.
I love that. You said a whole lot. I felt like I should have been taking notes because that was basically a whole lesson in itself. And to echo some of what you said, coming up with an action plan is just paramount, and focusing on that vision to develop that action plan. And then what I really, really want to draw out to people is how to measure that and put specific components in place so that it can be measured and therefore tracked, changed, and pushed towards the growth. So I mean that's beautiful. I'm very, very glad you brought all of that up. So let me change just a little bit here and ask you about like the challenges specifically. What are some of the challenges that an owner who has began to do what you said, they're starting this transition, what do they face as challenges and how do they overcome those?
That's a great question. And two of the biggest ones are first, time management. You're in the weeds and you can't pull yourself out of it. And that's one of those things where you just have to come to terms with change requires change. And it's a lot like, going through a cleanse or something like that, where it's probably going to be uncomfortable at first, but pick the time when you're most productive and just start charting this out. Even start with 5 to 10 minutes and then expand that as time goes on. But I think the bigger challenge really is that fear of change. It's intimidating, it requires work, and oftentimes you don't know where to start. Again, that's where the planning comes in, because oftentimes when you get something down on paper, it looks so much more achievable than when you're just letting it, wreak chaos and havoc in your mind. And I always like to compare a transition in from moving, working in the business to on the business to a gym membership. You can believe in the theory all day long, the value of working on your business. That's like having a gym membership, but you have to use the equipment to actually see change and growth. And so you have to use your good data, use your goals as the North Star, and put it to work. And so, I mean, if I had to say it in 3 words, it would just be that change requires change. So, yes, it's probably going to be uncomfortable, but you don't want to be in the same place in a year, do you?
Ah, definitely not. So change requires change. I hope everybody literally wrote that down. It echoes through your minds because you got to change yourself in order to get the change that you want in others. I love the gym membership metaphor. For me, most of the time people make some big commitment, they buy a gym membership, and they fall off the wagon, and now they're just paying more money to stay unhealthy. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to squander our resources. We want to get in there and do the things necessary. We want to get fit as a business and as a leader, and overcoming challenges like that with the time management and setting the goals and knowing yourself when you're most productive and getting that done. I love it. Those are all beautiful things. Well, so now we've talked about it and we've kind of narrowed in on some of these topics. Let's start off with, or not start off, let's kind of get towards the finishing off with an example. Do you have a business or somebody that you can kind of tell us about and how they successfully navigated their transition and maybe still are navigating that transition, and what were some of the outcomes that they achieved with that?
Yeah, and I'll use our own firm as an example. I'm biased, of course, but this is the business that I know the most about, and so I can speak to it better than I would of a client. And if anyone's familiar with the CPA tax and accounting industry, the business model is very reactive. Either you have experienced this as a CPA firm owner yourself, or you've likely experienced this as a taxpayer that hires a CPA firm. You start the conversation during tax season with your provider, and by that point, the year's over. It's a little too late to take advantage of some things, and worst case scenario, you're surprised by the outcome and you owe a lot of money. And being in tax and accounting for 6 years before investing in firms and trying to flip the model, I knew that this isn't how we could help clients in the best way possible. And so I quit my job and decided to start investing in accounting firms with the intent of working on the business and not in it. So my first business partner and and we're still working together. We just have a third one now, but we started acquiring firms knowing we're not going to do billable work. We're going to work on the business. We're going to improve this model because we know the knowledge is there to help our entrepreneurs, our small business clients, but we can't leave it up to chance. And especially with the way technology is entering the industry at the pace that it is, we're seeing a lot of consolidation and commoditization in the industry. And so working with your client strategically not only provides them value, but it also, is a good thing for our own business continuity. And so going into our project for acquiring firms, starting 4 years ago with this vision of flipping the model on its head from reactive to strategic, we've been able to focus on our ideal clients, not leaving their support up to chance, and also not having them served at the expense of our burnt out staff. It was very important to us to provide value to our business owners without it taxing our staff unnecessarily.
I love it.
And
So let me jump in
yeah,
here just for a minute because I really want to emphasize something that you said earlier, and that I don't want this to be paved over. And coming kind of towards wrapping up here, you said something about getting over fear, and you quit your job and you got over a fear step. And then you really did things intentionally, deliberately. Every action that you took had a purpose behind it. And I think that's a good message for us to echo. And we're coming to the end of this segment. So one thing that I really want to do is I really want to understand that not only am I impressed with you and your growth journey, but you do this for others like you just articulated moments ago. So if somebody wants you to do this for them, Lera, how do they get a hold of you? How do they get in contact with you and get you to help them down this exact same path?
sure. So on the banner at the beginning of the interview, you had my LinkedIn link. My name is Lera Kooper. The website is accountabilityservices.com, and my podcast is The Accelerator. And so you can reach me through any of those. And I would be more than happy to entertain a conversation with you. It's a 30-minute free strategy session. So why not? You might as well take advantage.
Lera, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on today. I look forward to having you on the show in the future. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut to a break right now and be back with our very next guest. So stay tuned.